everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest. Today I just got back from watching Scream 6, the sequel to the last Scream, but it's all, you know, it's the sixth Scream movie, but it's more so a sequel to the Scream that came out last year. Anyways, yeah, it's a sequel to the requel to the, however they put it in this movie. Yeah, so I'm gonna go over some non-spoiler thoughts, and then I'm gonna give a clear indication when I'll fully talk about all the spoilers and of course the big reveal of who it is this time, you know. And yeah, so that's what we're gonna do it. So non-spoiler part first. I'm gonna say right now, I really enjoyed this movie. I had a great time, and you know, I'm a big fan of the franchise, so you know, call me biased or whatever. But I'm a big fan of the franchise. But whenever a new one comes out, you're always kind of nervous because you're like, oh man, it would be really easy for you to kind of be lazy and just make it like just another chapter, and like, you know what I mean, like if you don't try to surprise us or try to like put new twists and turns on things and make things really unexpected, it's really easy just to make this another like, and it was this person, okay, and then like you move on, right? Like there's nothing that stands out about this entry, and I'm so glad to report that this one, they managed to do that, you know what I mean? Like they managed to like really make this feel different and make it feel new. I do have, you know, some criticisms as far as other things go. We'll talk about that in the spoiler section, but overall I had a really great time. I feel like they managed to keep this going. They definitely show that yes, they still care about this. They still care about trying to make this new and fresh while still, you know, all over this movie paying homage to the past entries of this franchise, right? And like this movie definitely was like just all, you saw it in the trailers, but that room with all the references of like everything you can imagine was referenced, you know. So yeah, that's all over this movie. And they did a great job. And they also, you know, I felt like they kept the group from the last movie of your survivors, and they managed to make them grow and make you care about them. And you know, this movie definitely cemented the fact that like, okay, we have a new core group, you know. We have a new, like, we've moved on from the past, you know. You had like your core three of you know, Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, right? Now we have our new core group, and you're actually gonna care about these people, you know, like they're not just gonna be like, I don't know, like really weak ripoffs of the originals. They're gonna be brand new characters, and you know, they did it. That's all I'm saying. Is like they managed to make a sequel that was really enjoyable. It had a decent amount of twists that you definitely do not see coming, especially the opening. This is, you know, I gotta say, like, obviously the first movie is a classic, its opening, right? But like this opening was really unexpected. Like as it's happening, I was like, I have no idea where they're going with this, because they've never done anything like this for the opening of one of these movies. Even four, where they like did that crazy meta thing where everything was like in a movie, you know. This was really unexpected, and I was like, oh man, this you know, I was like I haven't been this excited for an opening probably since 4, you know. So just, yeah, they did it. They still care. They're still throwing everything they can to like show us something new, something but still plausible within the universe, you know. They're not going all the way out there crazy yet, you know, which is kind of some of my thoughts about the spoiler section, but we'll get into that. But yeah, everything worked in this movie for me, you know. So yeah, that's my thoughts. They did a good job. It's another entry, but it's a strong entry, and it's gonna stand out, you know. Like I'm gonna think about like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened in 6, that was crazy, you know. So like it's not just a forgettable one where you're just like, what happened again, I don't, you know what I mean. So like some franchises they just have like another entry and you kind of forget about that one entirely, and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that happened too. But this one, it's like, no, I remember this one. So yeah, they did a great job. Go watch Scream 6, especially if you're a fan of the franchise, and you're gonna get all the little references, because of course they're referencing everything, right? Like that's kind of what this franchise does. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Okay, we're gonna move on to spoiler sections. Okay, we're gonna just go ahead and, here we go. So that's your warning, spoilers. I'm gonna talk about everything. First, the opening. man, that opening, this was like this made the movie for me, you know what I mean? So like, even if the ending reveal of who it is, I'm kind of like, I like it, but I'm like, okay, I guess it all makes sense. It's that's what it is, right? Like, it makes sense in this world. The opening was so strong that I was like, I'm with you, you know what I mean? Like they hooked you, and I'm with the ride the entire movie, because that opening was so strong. Basically what happens is we have our classic setup where, obviously it's in New York, it's in the middle of a bar, and Samara Weaving gets a phone call of this guy she's supposed to meet at the bar, and he's like, oh, I can't find my way to this bar, can you go outside and show me what it looks like? And basically he tricks her into going down a dark alley, which of course, as an audience member, you're like, no, don't go down a dark alley trying to meet a stranger you don't know. Come on. So of course, that's what they want you to be doing, right? They want you to be yelling at the screen, going like, no, don't, why would you do that? And so Samara Weaving goes down a dark alley, and she gets attacked by a ghost face, and she gets killed, and you think like, okay, I guess that was the opening kill. But then it keeps going. Ghostface, after he kills Samara Weaving, takes off his mask, and it is Flash Thompson from those new Spider-Man movies. It's that guy, and then he goes all the way home, and he runs into the main characters for a little bit, and they have like a little bit of a conversation. And you're like, okay, so I guess maybe in this movie we're gonna know who Ghostface is the whole time, because they just showed it. He killed someone, and then he took the mask off, so there's no question he is a Ghostface, right? And so he goes back to his apartment where he has, I don't know if it was supposed to be his roommate or his boyfriend or what the deal was there, but he goes all the way back up there, and he's openly saying like, hey, where are you at? I want to tell you about what just happened, and then he gets a phone call where he's talking to another Ghostface, and this is like, oh, he's talking to his roommate, right? And he's like, oh, come on, we said we weren't going to use the ghost face voice on each other, come on. And so you get the idea that it was going to be him and his roommate, and they were going to be ghost facing, they're going to go after the sisters, and they said their goal was to finish Richie's movie, right? Richie from the last movie, who was, he's trying to like make the perfect stab movie by having it based on real events, like actually recreate everything. And so they're like, all right, we're gonna go after the sisters and finish what Richie started. And so it turns out that his roommate, the one who is gonna be ghost facing with him, he's actually dead, and he gets attacked, and then our guy gets attacked by another ghost face. Now we have a ghost face being attacked by another mysterious ghost face, and so he gets killed, and that's how we start this movie. And I was like, hold on, and there immediately your mind starts going places. You start coming up with your own theories, like, okay, is this a ghost face who goes after other killers? Is that where this is going? And then you start like, from there you start like piecing together, like, okay, well, if that's actually what's happening, because that's what we saw just happen, right? Like, Ghostface goes after a bunch of other killers, you start guessing like, well, who would do that? And this movie's greatest strength is that they actually, for real, managed to make me question everybody, even the main characters, even some of the core group. They call themselves the core four. It's like a big joke in this movie. But like, even some of them, I was legitimately questioning. I was like, maybe it actually is one of them, because you're thinking to yourself, this movie's gonna try to pull a twist at some point, right? Like the big reveal, it's got to be this huge twist. So who could it be? And so you really are suspecting everyone, even people that normally you would not suspect them, but you kind of have to, right? And they even, of course, because this is a Scream movie, they're all meta with it, and they're directly addressing this as they're talking about the brand new rules, right? They're literally saying how, hey, all of you new characters, you're all suspects because we don't know you that well, and us, the core four, I guess we also technically have to be suspects, because wouldn't it be a great twist in a sequel movie if one of us actually was the killer? So, as I'm thinking these things, the movie is literally saying these things out loud. So I'm like, okay, so they already know where I'm going to be reaching these conclusions from. So this is all part of their plan. And again, this is like, okay, so these writers, they care. They still care about this. They're not phoning it in. They're not just like making another one. They're like, okay, they know, they're following along exactly how I would see that beginning, the conclusions I would reach from that, and then they're going to directly address that only 30 minutes later. They're going to directly address what I'm currently theorizing about, while I'm watching the movie. So yeah, this was like a wild ride for me, because I'm like, okay, they're already on top of it. They already know what I'm thinking, and they already are messing with me now, So like even me trying to figure this out is part of their kind of manipulations, right? So yeah, just that opening was so strong, because it just like spread out all these theories of like, okay, a ghost face that killed another ghost face. It could be a lot of people who would do that, right? Maybe this is some kind of seeking justice ghost face who's trying to take out murderers, sort of like a Dexter thing, I guess. Anyways, so yeah, we get a whole lot of different events. We get the cool thing about this one is that like this ghost face was not scared to kill in public. He would go after our characters and just as you saw in the trailer, it was the middle of a bodega or the middle of a subway, or right outside their apartment, like in front of the street. Like, it did not matter that you were in public. Like, they would go after you. And so like that was also another big threat. It was like, you really, despite how big it was and despite how many people were around, you still felt like, oh, you really aren't safe anywhere. Like, he doesn't care. He's gonna do it. You know what I mean? And so like that was another kind of refreshing thing, because normally it feels like Ghostface would run away once there's too many people around, But nope, not these ones. So yeah, let's talk about Gale. So Gale is our only returning original cast member, right? And again, they're kind of going over how like, even Gale could be a theory, right? Like, what if Gale's the killer? She finally snapped. Or maybe Gale finally dies because, like, we're moving on from the future and we got our new cast members. So, like, Gale's, she's from the last century. No one cares about the old characters, stuff like that. And so Gale, of course, again, what you saw in the trailer, I kind of wish that they showed less in the trailers, to be honest with you, because a lot of these moments, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this happened in the trailer. This happened in the trailer, So I kind of wish some of this was saved a little bit, but I guess I see why, marketing. They got to market it, right? Anyways, so Gale, of course, as we saw in the trailer, was attacked. And this was something that I wasn't sure I heard correctly, because they play it out like a death scene. Like, she gets attacked, and then, our heroes come in and try to save her, but they might be too late. And it kind of seems like she took her final breath and she died. But the paramedics are there. They do get to her, so it's like, I guess she died, but it really seemed like that. But then at the very end of the movie, they quickly say like, oh yeah, so-and-so and Gale are gonna make it. They said they're gonna be okay. So they don't show us Gale, but they said that Gale's alive, I guess. Assuming I didn't mishear that. So yeah, even though it did look like Gale had died in this moment, I guess she did not die, which I'm wondering if that was just some what would you call it, ADR, just like added in real quick. Maybe they decided to, maybe they did originally kill Gale off and they changed their minds, and so they're like, let's put something in really quick at the very end of our editing process and say that she's alive, actually, because it was definitely one of those kinds of changes where it felt like they might have just added that in. But I'm fine with it, like it's just like, okay, did she die? It looked like she died, but maybe she's alive. I don't know. I guess you do kind of want to see her and Sydney get back together, which of course, one of the big things is Sydney is not in this movie because there was a whole pay dispute, that kind of thing. So yeah, she's not in this movie. She's brought up a couple times, but hopefully in a future movie, her and Gale will get to see each other again before one of them dies. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay again. Just like Rocky Balboa, I'm okay with Sydney having a happily ever after. Like you don't have to kill these characters off, but I don't know if they come back. Maybe you have to. I don't know. Anyways. So let's go into the final reveal here. So this is, I think, my one thing where it's not that I dislike the reveal. It's that maybe it's, you have a handful of characters here that are using different names and they're hiding their identities. So you have you have one roommate who's Tara's Tara's roommate, and then you have Chad's roommate. So you have two different roommate characters, and you know, they even kind of bring up how like, oh, you're both suspects, so the you know, you could rig the system on who gets your roommate, right? Like you could answer the ad, or you know, like there's all kinds of ways you could rig that system. So they very much point out that they are suspects the entire movie, to the point where it kind of even became a joke that this guy was a suspect. So in the end, it is revealed that both of them are suspects, are the killers, are the two killers that we see, because we're in this big amphitheater and we see two ghost faces. Now, of course, the interesting thing about the girl roommate is that she had died earlier in the movie, and then it's revealed that no, she just faked her death, right? Which, you know, that one kind of feels like cheating a little bit, only in the sense of like, was there any indication that she did fake her death? Because we see a ghost face like walking behind her as she's on the phone, and it's like, oh, she doesn't see that the ghost face is there. But then you gotta ask, like, well, hold on, is this only being done because the guy who's living in the apartment across the street, is this only being done because he can see them, and that's why they put on, like, you know what I'm saying? Like little moments like that, because it's like, if they didn't know he was there watching them, and he's like, oh my god, there's a ghost face behind that girl, you know, like if they didn't know that was happening, then it's like, why was this even happening? This was staged, you know what I mean? Like they faked her death. They put like makeup on her, and they got like a fake body to pretend that she had died, you know, all that stuff. So it's like, there is a little bit of like, I don't know if that, you know what I mean? Like, I guess it had to have been for the guy across the street who's seeing the ghost face there. I guess it had to have been for his benefit to like pretend that she's about to get attacked. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only way that I can see that making any kind of sense. And the other thing is that okay, so the third killer, there's a third killer, not really a ghost face, but he is, you know, he's a bad guy, he's a killer, is the police officer who was the father of the girl roommate. Now, you know, they do indicate early on of how like, oh, she lost a brother, and you know, like, oh, ever since I lost my brother, my dad's always kept an eye on me, that kind of thing, right? So, you know, the whole movie, of course, I'm like, okay, so who was her brother? Is it a character we know? And I started, you know, I kind of instantly guessed that, you know, here's the big reveal, I instantly guessed that her brother who they lost was actually Richie from the last movie. And so that, you know, but then when she died, I stopped, you know, saying that she was a suspect, because she's a dead character now. And then, of course, turns out she's not dead. So, again, it's kind of like, I'm sitting here trying to put together the clues as an audience member, but then it feels like maybe there's a little bit of cheating going on, because it's like, how could I have known that she faked her death? And I get that was the point for the characters, but it feels like, you know, maybe there would have been some indication earlier, you know, from the audience's standpoint that was the case, you know, because otherwise it's like, well, I mean, yes, it's a surprise and it's shocking who the killers turn out to be, but it's also like, okay, but I had no way of knowing that was gonna happen. You know what I mean? And you know, maybe that's fine, you know, like they kind of did a similar thing with in Scream 2, like Billy Loomis's mom, right? Like, we had no idea what she looked like, and none of the other characters really like had any indication of like, oh, remember Billy Loomis's mom? Like, they never really like brought that up as a possibility, you know what I mean? So there was no clues or hints that was the case. And so you kind of have a similar thing here, where it's like they were using fake names, and we saw one of them die, but it turns out they didn't die, and they're actually Richie's family. You know, like, you have the brother and the sister and the dad, and that's, you know, they all want revenge on her for killing Richie, and that's the big reveal. And you know, it's fine. I think in the lead up to this film, I was allowing myself to like get really out there, you know, like a lot of people, I was kind of like, oh, maybe Stu Macher comes back, or, maybe one of the core members is going to be the killer, or Gale Withers is going to be the killer, something more dramatic like that. But it ends up being Richie's family, who they never mentioned in the last movie. I don't think they ever mentioned his family. They never mentioned a lot of stuff like that, right? It turns out that, like, oh, well, Richie, he was so in love with this franchise and he made his own home movies, and his dad had helped him curate this big collection of evidence that his dad, I guess, just stole from work, which that must have taken a lot of work to try and steal. Anyways, so, it is kind of like, okay, I guess I had no way of guessing that, so in that way it feels like I was cheated a little bit, because it's like, it has to be something that I would know, that I would be able to piece together for it to be a more effective mystery kind of game that we're playing here. But it's fine. It's, you know what I mean? Like, they did give the small hint of like, oh yeah, she said she lost her brother, right? So I guess in that way I did instantly go like, oh, it's Richie. But a lot of other things were throwing you off. And again, small moments like, the roommate's on the phone and there's a ghost face behind her and that guy across the street sees him, but the roommate's in on it, so that must have just been for his benefit to like fake out that she's about to get attacked, stuff like that, where you're like, I guess that's what was happening in that moment. But again, overall, it was a really effective movie. They, it does make sense logically, right? Because Richie would have a family, and they started doing this whole thing where like there's an online conspiracy where it was actually all Sam's, it was all her fault, and she's the one who actually killed everyone, and she framed Richie, and apparently they started all that, and they did this kind of thing where like they got to destroy her reputation. And I don't know if this was supposed to be some kind of comment on cancel culture or something like that. I'm not sure if that's what they were kind of going for, but anyways, it was a really effective movie. They did it really good. And the thing is, if they ever are going to do a more dramatic reveal where it turns out to be one of the characters that we know, or if it's something as, out there as Stu Macher, because by the way, they do address Stu Macher. They do talk about how like, oh yeah, look, there's that TV that killed Stu Macher. And then Kirby's like, yeah, if you believe that he's actually dead. And then they don't talk about it past that. So basically they're literally introducing the idea that he might not actually be dead, which is kind of weird, because then it's like, is that not just a thing you can Google? Like if he was dead, you would know about it, wouldn't you? Like, are you not FBI, right? like is this not something that you would have actual information on? If like, was he ever, was he on death row? Was he, you know what I mean? Like, what did he leave the hospital? Did he escape at some point? Like, you would know this information, would you not? So if they ever do the Stu Macher thing, which that feels inevitable, it feels like whether it happens in the next movie or if it happens 3 movies from now, it feels like one day they're absolutely going to do that. And I hope they just have a good explanation of like, so where have you been? You know what I mean? Because clearly the people in universe are leaving open the possibility that you are alive. Now, again, how or why? Like, it seems like you could easily figure that out, that he was alive or not. But okay. Anyways, yeah. So aside from the fact that it feels like I couldn't really guess the big twist because I wasn't given all the proper context clues, I still found it to be really effective. The kills were effective. The brutal nature of a lot of this stuff was like really well done. And it's just, I guess it's kind of refreshing that like even in 2023, a slasher mystery can still work. Like I know the last movie came out just last year, but it's just, I think the kills were even more effective and the scares were even better than the last movie. So this one absolutely has a lot of strengths going for it. I would say I think I like this one better, even though there are a lot of stuff where it's like, I don't know, I don't know if I could have guessed this. I think that's really its only flaw, is that like I, no matter what kind of clues you had, I don't know if you ever could have pieced that together. But also, let's talk about Kirby real quick. Her coming back as an FBI agent was really well done, and they had like a lot of fake outs with her. She was like for at least a second, and obviously they intended this to be the case. She was definitely like the prime suspect of like, oh, she's absolutely the killer. She's definitely one of them. And then of course it's another fake out, right? So like this movie, they did a really good job. I would say better than a lot of other Scream movies in the past. They did a good job of genuinely making you believe that a lot of people, even the most unlikely ones, could have been the killer, because it all sort of made sense, and then like obviously as you go on, you dwindle your suspects down. But yeah, like I was fully on board that like, oh yeah, Kirby's absolutely the killer. But then when they didn't do the reveal, I was like, okay, maybe she's not the killer. So like this movie was playing me like a fiddle. Like they every single time I had a theory or a thought or a suspect, the movie addressed that suspect like 5 minutes later. I was like, okay, so they know exactly where I'm at, where my brain's headed right now. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. They did a good job. And I'm excited for what they do next. Is it going to be next year, or is it, I don't know what the plan is, but yeah, they did a really good job. Awesome. I'm glad the Scream franchise maintains its not every entry is the strongest, but I would say on the whole, this franchise has managed to maintain to be much stronger than a lot of other ones. Like how many bad Friday the 13th or Halloween movies are there? You know what I mean? So like, and then you got Scream, and it's like, on the whole, pretty strong. I would say even its weakest entries are not the worst things in the world. So it's like, yeah, pretty awesome. All right, that's Scream 6. And let me know what you guys think. Did it all make sense? Did the twist, like, were you able to add that up? Like, or do you think the movie maybe cheated a little bit by not giving you information that could actually add up to this conclusion? I don't know. Let me know how you feel about that, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.